let's dive right back into it, huh?
Yeah.
Into another deep dive. And this time, we're really tackling something that, well, you marked as super important in your notes, the art of letting go.
Yeah.
Specifically, how to break free from all that stuff,
Yeah.
the toxic habits, the relationships that might be holding us back.
It's something we all encounter,
It really is.
yet it can be surprisingly tricky
Oh, it is.
to navigate.
How do we even, I guess even the first hurdle, how do we even know if something is toxic in the first place?
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but for me, it's not always obvious.
Right.
Sometimes those red flags look suspiciously like regular flags. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Those initial warning signs can be very subtle, especially early on. But generally speaking, when we talk about something being toxic, it refers to anything that's consistently bringing more negativity than positivity into your life.
Okay.
Whether that's a habit, a relationship, it's really about recognizing those draining patterns of negativity or just a consistent lack of support. Would you agree?
Ugh, confirmation bias at its finest.
Right.
I can totally relate to that because thinking back, it reminds me of this friendship, and I'm using,
Quote unquote.
air quotes.
Yeah.
It seemed great at first.
Yeah.
Back in college, we had fun. We would stay up late talking, all that. But then it became just so much all about them, their drama, their needs. And I was constantly feeling drained, anxious, like I was walking on eggshells all the time.
Right. And that's a classic example of how our own brains can sometimes work against us, right?
Yeah.
Because that confirmation bias means we often cling to information that reinforces what we want to believe, even when it's not the healthiest situation.
Totally.
So you might have been focused on those initial good times, subconsciously downplaying that negative shift in the friendship.
Okay, so let's say the fog is lifted.
Yeah.
And we finally admitted to ourselves, yep, this thing is toxic.
Right.
Why is actually letting go so hard? I know that sounds obvious, but why do we cling to things that we know in our heads are bad for us?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, our brains crave comfort, familiarity, even if it's disguised as, this toxic person, this bad habit. It's like, that old saying,
Oh, yeah.
better the devil you know.
Totally.
Right? Our brains are kind of wired
For sure.
to prioritize what feels familiar, even when it's not really serving us well.
Plus, on top of all that brain stuff, there's that, let's be honest.
Yeah.
The fear factor.
Right.
My notes here, it says fear of loneliness, fear of the unknown. Those are big ones.
Absolutely, yeah. And those are very real. Those are really powerful.
Yeah.
Those fears, we worry about being alone. Right? We worry about not finding something better, disappointing other people if we walk away. So it's much easier to stay stuck, even when it's kind of painful, than it is to face those fears head on, right?
What about, I feel like there's this fear of missing out too. What if we let go and then things actually do get better? But without us there,
Right.
then it's like we've just messed everything up for no reason.
That's where we really need to get crystal clear on the difference between, hope and delusion.
Ooh.
Right. So hope is when you are maintaining a positive expectation, right? Believing that positive change is possible.
Okay.
Delusion is clinging to an unrealistic version of reality.
Give me an example, because
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm on the right.
Yeah. So let's say you're trying to, break a habit of overworking yourself. Hope is believing that you can set healthier boundaries and prioritize, your own well-being, right? Delusion is telling yourself, okay, but just one more project, then I'll relax.
Right.
When you know deep down that that's not true.
Yeah, you're just kind of...
lying to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good distinction. So we need to be, brutally honest with ourselves
Yeah.
about whether we're, clinging to this fantasy.
Yes.
Or actually embracing, a realistic path to
a realistic
getting better, to improving.
And sometimes that requires kind of taking a step back and looking at the situation with fresh eyes, right?
Really?
Just asking yourself, is this hope
Yeah.
or is this actually delusion?
So, okay, so we've identified it.
Yeah.
We've hopefully, removed the delusion.
Yeah.
But knowing we need to let go and actually doing it
Right.
are two very, very different things.
Totally, yeah.
It's like that saying, easier said than done.
Absolutely.
So what are some practical
Yeah.
first steps to kind of bridge that gap?
Well, I think that's where your letting go toolkit comes in handy, right? You've got some great strategies in your notes here.
Yes. A letting go toolkit. Okay, I'm into it. It's like we're, building a new, healthier, life, one tool at a time.
I love that, yeah.
And first up, setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries, yes. So important. Think of it like, those invisible fences, right?
Oh, yeah.
That are there to protect your
yard.
Yeah, your emotional yard.
Your emotional space.
I like it.
And your energy. It clearly defines where you end and another person begins.
So thinking back to, like, that whole college friendship thing.
Yeah.
A boundary could have been like, hey, I only have 15 minutes to talk right now,
Instead of letting, like, their drama just consume my whole evening.
Right, exactly. Small but significant shifts in how you're interacting can make a world of difference.
I like it. What other tools are in our arsenal here?
Well, we've got, let's see, journaling. Good old-fashioned journaling.
OG.
Never underestimate the power, right, of putting pen to paper.
It's true.
Or fingers to keyboard.
Fingers to keyboard, there you go.
In this day and age. But journaling is so helpful to process emotions, to help you identify maybe some unhealthy patterns.
Yeah.
And even clarify what you truly want in your life, right?
It's like having that long overdue conversation with yourself.
Exactly.
But on paper, just to get all those, like, tangled thoughts and feelings.
It allows you to kind of untangle those thoughts without judgment, right? And it often reveals patterns
that you might not have even noticed otherwise.
That's so true.
And then finally, we have this idea of gradual detachment.
Gradual detachment. So no need to, like, go cold turkey.
Sometimes you do.
On bad habits or toxic friends or, well, my Netflix queue might have something to say about that.
Well, that's the thing. A gradual approach can definitely be less jarring.
Right.
Although, yeah, sometimes that clean break is necessary.
Sure.
But gradual detachment really just means that you're slowly decreasing the time and energy that you are investing in that person or that habit.
Okay.
Think of it like turning down the volume knob.
Oh, I like that.
Slowly.
Right. Hey?
Until there's just silence.
So it's like this gentle, like, kind of easing out of
it, exactly.
Instead of like this harsh,
Right, exactly, yeah. Which sometimes I feel like we need that, but
sometimes you do, yeah.
But I like that idea of a gradual, kind of
It's definitely
phasing out. This all makes sense in theory.
Yeah.
Like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, yes, this makes sense.
Right.
But I imagine it can still feel like really overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
Even with all the right tools. I mean, it's kind of like decluttering your emotional closet,
Oh, 100%.
It can feel so daunting and overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
But the end result is just so worth it.
Exactly. And that's where self-compassion comes in, right?
Oh, okay.
You highlighted that beautifully in your notes.
Yeah.
Just remembering that this is a journey, not a race.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind to yourself every step of the way.
So we're being patient with ourselves. We're allowing those uncomfortable feelings to exist.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also, like, actively using this toolkit, build new patterns, healthier patterns, that kind of thing.
Building those new neural pathways.
Yes. There we go. It's like we're trading in our old rusty tools.
Yeah, I love that.
For something nice and shiny and new.
Yeah. And speaking of shiny and new, you touched on something in your notes about the kind of like the positive side effects of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
That it can actually lead to like more energy, new relationships, that kind of like transformation.
It's interesting.
So what's the science behind that? Like what actually happens when we create this space in our lives?
Yeah, it's funny you say that.
Yep.
Because I was looking at my notes and I was like, the success story part, like, is that real? Or is that just like wishful thinking? Like, by letting go, it's not just that we're removing something bad, but that we're actually making space for good things to come in.
Well, and it's so fascinating is that when we finally let go of what's no longer serving us, right, we create this vacuum.
Okay.
And just like in nature, a vacuum rarely stays empty for long, right?
So it's not so much that we are like magically happier because that toxic thing's gone. It's that we've actually made space for new positive experiences to actually come in.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like your energy is no longer being wasted on something that was draining you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. But I mean, even with all this amazing insight, I mean, this is still, I don't know, it feels like.
Oh, yeah. It's heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
What about, like, for those of us listening who are like, okay, I need help with this letting go process. You mentioned support systems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether that is trusted friends, family members, a therapist, support groups.
Yeah.
Having that network can make a world of difference.
For sure.
Those individuals can offer encouragement, a listening ear, maybe some perspective that we hadn't thought of.
Accountability.
Accountability, 100%, yeah.
Your notes also mentioned something about like curated resources.
Oh, yeah.
Like books, podcasts, that kind of thing?
Well, there's this great book by Dr. Brené Brown called The Gifts of Imperfection.
I've heard of that.
That I often recommend. And it's full of like really insightful and practical advice on kind of letting go of that need for perfectionism and embracing vulnerability, which is so important in this process.
Okay, I will check that out. It sounds like, what I'm hearing is that letting go is a journey.
It is.
It has its ups, its downs, its challenges, but ultimately it's about creating a life that's more aligned with who we are and who we want to be. And speaking of journeys, you mentioned this letting go challenge in my notes. Can you refresh my memory on that?
Yeah, it's actually a really simple but powerful exercise. The idea is that you choose just one thing that you're ready to release, from your life. Could be a habit, could be a relationship, a limiting belief, and you just make that conscious effort to kind of let it go.
Okay.
It's really just about creating space for something new and positive to kind of emerge.
Like a mini decluttering project for your life. I like that. Well, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here, I'm left with this thought. If we could all, each of us, just clear away one thing that's no longer serving us.
Right.
What incredible things could become possible?
Think about the possibilities. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Right. It's exciting.
That by letting go, we're actually making space for something even better.
100%.
To come into our lives.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
This was great.
But that doesn't mean the learning has to stop here.
Yeah.
Go out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into
I love that.
The things that matter to you.
Beautiful.
And we'll catch you on the next deep dive.